You stood beside your fiance, Jungkook, at a party, thrown by one of his friends for his successful business. The room was full of people you didn't know, and although the decorations were beautiful, you felt out of place. You stayed close to Jungkook, seeking comfort in his presence. He didn't seem to mind, but his best friend, who was also at the party, kept glaring at you, with anger in her eyes, that you don't know why. You looked at Jungkook, hoping he would notice, but he seemed lost in his own world again. You couldn't understand why he was always like this, always so distant. His mother once told you, it's just his nature. He didn't talk much, even with her, and he wasn't close to anyone. Because of that, you had no idea how he would act if he truly cared. You tried to make small talk with Jungkook to ease your discomfort. Yin, who's that over there? You asked, pointing to a man laughing loudly with a group of people. Jungkook. Oh, him, that's Minho, an old friend from school, Jungkook replied, his tone cool and distant. Yin. And her? You asked, nodding toward a woman in a red dress who seemed to know everyone. Jungkook. That's Sumin, another friend, he said, keeping his sentence short. His attention was elsewhere, making you feel even more out of place. You tried again, wanting to know more about the people he seemed to know so well. Yin, do you come to these parties often? Jungkook. Sometimes, he answered briefly, not offering more. Suddenly, his best friend interrupted, pulling him into a conversation about something from their past. She kept bringing up memories that you weren't part of, making you feel like you didn't really know Jungkook at all. But as always, he was giving brief answers, not initiating conversations. It had only been 3 months since your marriage was decided, and you still weren't fully comfortable with him. His busy schedule and distant nature didn't help. He was reserved, not open like you, and that coldness bothered you. He showed interest in you mentally, but not physically, which made you feel lonely. As the night went on, the party started to slow down. Jungkook's friends began pulling him away to meet with some old acquaintances. You could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to stay with you, but also felt like he had to go with them. He gently touched your arm, trying to bring you along. Jungkook, come with me, Yin, he said softly, trying to include you. It was a small gesture, but not enough. You felt off. The crowd, the noise, and the unfamiliar faces were getting to you. You felt heaviness in your chest, an anxiety you couldn't shake. You forced a smile and shook your head. Yin, I think I'll stay here, Jungkook. You go ahead. He frowned, clearly concerned. Jungkook, are you sure? I don't want to leave you alone. Before you could answer, his best friend Yuna stepped in. She smiled at you, but it didn't feel genuine. Yuna, it's okay, Yin, she said lightly. You can stay here and relax. We'll be back in a minute. Her words were friendly, but there was something off about them, like she didn't really care about what you wanted. Jungkook looked between the two of you, obviously unsure. You'd been close to him all night, but now, you wanted to be alone, and that puzzled him. Jungkook, what's wrong? He asked quietly. You've been with me all evening, but now, you want to stay here. Did something happen? You shook your head again, trying to push away the anxiety. Yin, no, it's nothing. I just need some solace. Jungkook wasn't convinced. He kept glancing at you, watching you closely, as if he was afraid to leave you. His eyes narrowed a bit as he looked at Yuna, not liking her suggestion. Jungkook, don't go too far, he said, his voice serious. I'll be here soon. You nodded, giving him a small smile, though inside, you felt unsure. You just needed some space, a moment to breathe. Reluctantly, Jungkook let himself be pulled away by his friends, but as he walked with them, his mind stayed on you. He kept looking back at you, his eyes filled with concern. He didn't like leaving you alone, especially in a place where you knew so few people. His steps were slow, distracted, as he tried to focus on what his friends were saying, but all he could think about was you. Even as he tried to engage in conversation, his thoughts kept drifting back. You quietly slipped away from the crowd, seeking a moment of solitude in the back of the hall. But Yuna, who had been watching you closely, noticed your retreat. A smirk curled on her lips. She had been waiting for an opportunity like this for a long time, not wanting to let it slip away. She quickly excused herself and followed you. You wandered to the backyard where the swimming pool lay empty and dark. The cool night air felt refreshing against your skin, and you took a deep breath, trying to calm the anxious thoughts racing through your mind. You leaned against the edge of the pool, reflecting on your relationship with Jungkook. It had only been 3 months since your engagement was announced, and you still felt like a stranger in his world. Jungkook was distant and reserved, and while he showed care in his own way, it often felt like he was holding back. You thought to yourself, Yin, it's just 3 months, it's still early, things will get better. You were trying to console yourself when you heard footsteps approaching. Before you could react, Yuna appeared. Her smile was more of a smirk now, her eyes gleaming with a hint of malice. Yuna, well, she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. How's your relationship with Jungkook? Still trying to figure him out? You felt a pang of surprise and hurt. Yin, it's fine, you said, trying to stay calm. We're just getting to know each other. Yuna laughed softly, a harsh sound in the quiet night. Yuna, oh really? I bet he's still not that into you. He wasn't over his ex when he agreed to this engagement. Her words cut deep, and you felt a rush of anger and sadness. Yin, don't you know what you're talking about? You said, your voice trembling. Why are you saying these things? Yuna didn't let up. Yuna, it's just the truth. He's always been distant, hasn't he? You think you can change him just by being here? Yin, Yuna, what's wrong with you? I said we are getting to know each other. Yuna, oh please, I've seen how he acts around you. Cold, distant, uninterested. You're fooling yourself if you think he's really into you. Yuna, or you're thinking something will change in future? Your heart pounded as her words struck deep. You knew Jungkook had a reserved nature, but hearing it from someone else made it hurt even more. Yin, that's not true, you replied, though your voice wavered. He cares about me and Yuna raised an eyebrow, her expression turning even more mocking. Yuna, is that what you think? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like he's just going through the motions. Maybe he's not over his ex, or maybe you're just not good enough for him. You felt a lump in your throat, a mix of anger and hurt building up. Yin, you don't know anything about our relationship, you snapped. Why are you trying to hurt me? What's your problem? Yuna, my problem? Yuna's eyes flashed with malice. My problem is that you're in the way. Jungkook used to be fun, lively. Now he's all tied down because of you. And let's be honest, you're just not what he needs. You're not exciting. You're not interesting. And maybe you're not even good in bed. Her words hit you like a slap in the face, and you felt your cheeks burn with humiliation. The insinuation was more than you could take. Yin, how dare you? You whispered, your voice shaking with fury. You don't have any right to say that. I am being patient. That doesn't mean you will take advantage of that. Yuna's smirk widened, sensing she'd struck a nerve. Yuna, face it, Yin. He's not interested in you, and he never will be. I've seen how he looks at you, like you're just another task he has to deal with. Maybe if you were better at keeping him interested, he wouldn't be so distant. Yuna, you're just the girl he's stuck with, and deep down, you know it too. The final insult was the last straw. You couldn't take it anymore. In a sudden burst of frustration and pain, you slapped her across the face. The impact was sharp, and Yuna's eyes widened, in shock as her head snapped to the side. For a moment, you felt a rush of relief, but it was short-lived. Yuna slowly turned back to face you, her expression twisted with rage. Yuna, you'll regret that, she spat, her voice low and dangerous. Before you could react, she grabbed your arm with a fierce grip. Yuna, you think you can just slap me and get away with it? She hissed, her voice full of venom. Then, with a sudden and violent shove, she pushed you toward the edge of the pool. You stumbled, your heart racing as you tried to regain your balance. But it was too late. Yuna's shove sent you over the edge, and you plunged into the empty pool, landing with a painful thud. The breath was knocked out of you, and for a moment, you were too stunned to move. As you lay there, dazed and struggling to breathe, you looked up to see Yuna staring down at you, her expression a mix of anger and fear. Yuna, enjoy your little swim, she sneered, her voice dripping with malice. Then she turned and quickly walked away, clearly worried that someone might have seen her. Yin, Jungkook, you whispered, your voice barely audible. As the fear took over, you needed him, but he was nowhere to be found. Jungkook was deep in conversation with his friends, trying to enjoy the rare chance to catch up. But despite the laughter and the easy banter, his mind kept drifting back to you. He hadn't seen you in a while, and it bothered him more than he cared to admit. He kept glancing toward where you had been standing, but when he looked again, you were no longer there. A small frown creased his forehead as he scanned the room, searching for any sign of you. His unease grew when he realized that Yoona was also missing. Something didn't feel right. Jungkook, hey, have you seen Yin going anywhere? Jungkook asked his friends, trying to keep his voice casual, but the concern was evident in his tone. One of his friends shrugged. I saw her a little while ago, but she might have gone to get some fresh air. She's probably around here somewhere. Jungkook's eyes narrowed, not satisfied with the answer. The uneasy feeling in his chest tightened. Jungkook, fresh air, he repeated, his voice laced with worry. Where exactly? His friends exchanged glances, sensing his growing concern. Maybe the balcony or the backyard, one suggested, but their casual tone only fueled Jungkook's anxiety. Another friend tried to reassure him. Relax, man, she's probably just taking a break. We'll find her in no time. But Jungkook's expression darkened. Jungkook, I left her alone because of you all. She wouldn't just disappear like that, he said, his voice firm. And Yoona's missing too. Where are they? His friends fell silent, sensing the tension in his voice. Jungkook's usually calm demeanor was cracking, and they could see the worry etched on his face. He didn't wait for them to respond. Instead, he shot them a look that made it clear he wasn't in the mood for reassurances. He needed to find you. Jungkook, start looking, he ordered, his voice cold and authoritative. His friends didn't hesitate, scattering in different directions to search for you. Jungkook began his search methodically, his heart pounding in his chest. First, he checked the washrooms, calling out your name, but there was no answer. Each passing second felt like an eternity, and his anxiety only grew. Next, he rushed to the balcony, hoping to find you there, but again, you were nowhere to be found. You weren't answering your phone, which was not likely of you. Panic started to claw at him as he moved through the hall, searching every corner, but you were still missing. His breath quickened, and he tried to calm himself, but the fear that something had happened to you was taking over. Jungkook finally headed to the backyard, his heart pounding with every step. The cool night air brushed against his skin as he stepped outside, and he quickly looked around. When he noticed the empty pool, a terrible feeling hit him. He walked faster, his fear growing with each moment. The moment his eyes landed on you, his heart dropped. You were lying at the bottom of the empty pool, barely moving, your body drenched and trembling. The sight was enough to make his blood run cold. Yin, he shouted, his voice filled with panic. His shout echoed through the night, and within seconds, all his friends rushed outside, sensing that something was very wrong. Yin, he shouted again, panic clear in his voice as he rushed to the edge of the pool. Without a second thought, he jumped down, landing beside you. His hands shook as he reached for you, pulling you into his arms. Jungkook, hey Yin baby, wake up, please, open your eyes, Jungkook whispered desperately, his voice cracking under the weight of his fear. As he cradled you against his chest, he could feel his own heartbeat thundering in his ears, each beat a painful reminder of how fragile this moment was. His arms wrapped around your waist as tightly as he could, his grip almost desperate, as if holding you closer might somehow bring you back to him. His breath hitched, and he could feel the sting of tears welling up in his eyes, blurring his vision. The thought of losing you, of not seeing you open your eyes again, was too much to bear. His hands trembled uncontrollably as he gently stroked your back, his touch shaky, but filled with love and fear. Jungkook, please Yin, please don't leave me, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. His tears finally spilled over, sliding down his cheeks as he clung to you, his entire body trembling with the effort to keep himself together. With all the strength he could muster, Jungkook carefully lifted you in his arms, holding you securely against his body. Your head rested against his chest, and he could feel your shallow breaths against his skin, but they were too weak to faint. As he reached the edge of the pool, his friends, who had rushed outside after hearing his panicked shouts, quickly moved to help. They extended their hands, working together to lift you out of the pool with utmost care. Jungkook urged, carefully handed you over to his friends, who gently laid you on the ground. Without wasting a second, Jungkook dropped to his knees beside you. He tilted your head back slightly, pinching your nose shut, and then leaned down to press his lips against yours, giving you a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Jungkook, come on Yin, breathe, he whispered between breaths, his hands trembling as he tried to stay calm. He repeated the breaths, each one more desperate than the last, praying for any sign of life. with every passing second. His heart broke a little more, his tear-filled eyes looking at your face. One of his friends knelt beside you, gently rubbing your cold feet, trying to restore warmth to your body. Another friend carefully took your hands, drying them off and massaging them softly, hoping to ease the chill that had set in. Their faces were pale with worry, their own fear and concern mirrored in their tense expressions. As Jungkook continued to give you mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, his friends remained close, their presence a silent support. "Jungkook, come on, Yin," Jungkook whispered between breaths, his voice trembling with emotion. Then, after what felt like forever, your body jerked slightly, and you gasped for air, coughing as you finally started to breathe again. The relief was overwhelming, and Jungkook nearly collapsed with the intensity of it, his eyes filling with tears as he watched you come back to life. "Jungkook, thank God," he whispered, his voice breaking, as he pulled you into his arms once more, holding you as close as he could. His friends let out breaths they didn't realize they were holding, the tension in the air slowly easing as they saw you were okay. Jungkook leaned down, pressing a tearful kiss to your forehead. "Jungkook, I'm here, Yin. I've got you. I won't let anything hurt you," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion, as his friends continued to dry you off, trying to bring you back from the edge of cold darkness. "Jungkook, look at me. Are you okay? Please, tell me you're okay." You nodded weakly, your body still shaking from the cold and the shock. Jungkook's heart ached at the sight of you so vulnerable, and he felt a surge of guilt for not being there when you needed him. "Jungkook, I'm so sorry, Yin," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "I should have been with you. I should have protected you." He cradled your face in his hands and chest, his thumbs gently brushing away the tears on your cheeks. "Jungkook, how did it happen, Yin? Who did this to you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper, but there was a dangerous edge to it. He was already piecing it together. You didn't have the strength to answer, but the look in your eyes told him everything he needed to know. Jungkook's jaw clenched, his expression darkening with a mixture of anger and resolve. He carefully lifted you in his arms, holding you close to his chest. "Jungkook, we're leaving," he said, his voice cold and resolute, focused solely on getting you to safety. But before he could take a step, one of his friends, Minju, stepped forward, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. "Minju." "Jungkook, wait," he said, his tone calm but concerned. "I've booked some rooms here. You should let her rest there for now. I don't think she's in the state to go home in a car." Jungkook hesitated, looking down at you as you shivered in his arms. He knew his friend was right. Your body was still in shock, and he didn't wanted to give you an uncomfortable ride home. He nodded reluctantly, the fierce protectiveness in his eyes softening just a bit. "Jungkook, all right," he agreed, his voice firm. "Show me the room." His friend led the way, and Jungkook followed closely, still holding you as if you were the most precious thing in the world. He would make sure you were safe and warm, that much was certain. Once reaching the hotel's room, Jungkook gently laid you down on the soft bed. His friends quietly excused themselves, leaving the two of you alone in the dimly lit room. The door clicked shut, and the only sound left was the soft, uneven rhythm of your breathing. He sat on the edge of the bed, his eyes never leaving your face. "Jungkook, Yin," he whispered, his voice filled with so much love and regret. He leaned down and pressed a tender kiss on your forehead, then another on your cheek, and another, unable to stop himself. His lips brushed over your closed eyelids, your nose, and then down to your neck, each kiss a silent apology, a vow to never let anything hurt you again. "Jungkook, please baby, forgive me," he murmured between kisses, his voice trembling with emotion. He kissed you again, this time on the corner of your mouth, his breath shaky, his hands, still trembling slightly, moved to your hair, gently caressing the damp strands away from your face. The touch was tender, almost reverent, as he stroked your hair, trying to soothe both you and himself. "Jungkook, drink some water for me, okay?" Jungkook whispered, reaching for the glass on the nightstand. He lifted your head carefully, cradling you in his arms, like you were the most fragile thing in the world. He brought the glass to your lips, tipping it gently to let you sip. "Yin, Jungkook, just a little more Yin, it'll help," he coaxed, his voice soft and filled with care. His other hand supported your back, holding you close as you drank. Once you'd taken a few sips, he set the glass aside and kissed you again, his lips brushing over your temple as he whispered, "Jungkook, you're safe now. I'm here." Just then, there was a soft knock on the door, and one of Jungkook's friends entered the room quietly, holding a set of clean clothes. Jungkook nodded in thanks, taking the clothes and setting them on the bed, still holding you in his arms. "Jungkook, I'll take care of her," he replied, his tone gentle but firm, signaling that he wanted to be alone with you. His friend gave a small nod and left the room, closing the door behind him. Jungkook turned back to you, his eyes filled with concern as he noticed how your wet clothes clung to your body, making you shiver slightly. He hesitated for a moment, not wanting to cause you any discomfort, but he knew you needed to get out of those cold, damp clothes. "Jungkook, Yin, I'm going to help you change, okay?" he said softly, brushing a strand of hair away from your face. "You're soaked, and I don't want you to get sick." His voice was filled with care, and he gave you a reassuring smile. "Jungkook, you trust me, right? I am here. Let me take care of you, okay?" You nodded a bit, giving him a subtle reassuring smile, telling him H can continue, as he gently started to undo the buttons of your shirt. His fingers were careful and respectful, taking his time as he removed each piece of wet clothing. "Jungkook, I'm sorry, baby. I know this isn't comfortable," he whispered, his eyes never leaving yours as he worked. He made sure to keep you covered as much as possible, draping a towel over you to maintain your warmth and dignity. As he removed the last piece of clothing, he quickly grabbed the fresh set of clothes and began dressing you with the same gentle care. He slipped the soft, dry shirt over your head, making sure it fit snugly and comfortably. His hands moved to your arms, guiding them through the sleeves, his touch warm and tender. "Jungkook, there we go," Jungkook murmured, a small smile tugging at his lips as he smoothed the fabric over your shoulders. He helped you into the pants next, being just as careful as he lifted your legs one by one, pulling the material up slowly and adjusting it to make sure you were comfortable. As he finished, he couldn't resist leaning down to kiss you again, his lips lingering on your forehead. "Jungkook, you look much better now," he said softly, his voice full of affection. He gently wrapped the blanket around you again, tucking it in at the sides to keep you warm. "Yin, thank you," you whispered weakly, your voice barely audible. But Jungkook heard it, and it made his heart swell with emotion. He smiled down at you, brushing his fingers across your cheek. He sat back down beside you, his hand returning to your hair, gently stroking it as he watched you. "Jungkook, try to rest now," he whispered, leaning in to press another kiss to your temple. "I'm not going anywhere." You slowly began to relax, the warmth of the dry clothes and Jungkook's comforting presence easing the tension in your body. He stayed close, his touch and his words offering you the safety and comfort you desperately needed. As you began to drift off to sleep, Jungkook leaned over and kissed your forehead one last time, his heart heavy with the events of the night. He carefully reached for his phone and dialed his bodyguard. His voice was low, but there was no mistaking the cold, steely edge in his tone. "Jungkook, get me the CCTV footage from the backyard," he ordered, keeping his voice calm so as not to disturb you. "I want it immediately." Outside the room, Jungkook's friends were gathered, discussing the chaos that had just unfolded. They exchanged worried glances, each one processing the shock of seeing you pulled from the empty pool. "What the hell happened?" one of them muttered, shaking his head in disbelief. "I don't know, but whoever did this, Jungkook isn't going to let it slide," another replied, his tone filled with both concern and anger. "Who will jump in and drown themselves?" As they talked, the atmosphere suddenly shifted. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway, and everyone turned to see a group of bodyguards barging in. Their presence was commanding, and it immediately silenced the conversation. The bodyguards moved with purpose, heading straight toward the CCTV room. Among the people who had stayed behind was Yuna. She stood off to the side, trying to blend into the background, but her heart was racing, and her hands were trembling. Panic was setting in. She knew she had crossed a line, and now, watching the bodyguards take control of the situation, the gravity of what she'd done began to sink in. "What are they doing?" one of Jungkook's friends asked, eyeing the bodyguards with concern. "They're checking the footage," another answered, his voice tense. "Jungkook must have ordered it." Yuna felt a wave of fear crash over her. She wanted to leave, to disappear before things got worse, but she knew that vanishing now would only draw more suspicion. So she stayed put, her mind racing as she tried to figure out what to do. Meanwhile, in the CCTV room, The bodyguards worked quickly, rewinding the footage and focusing on the moments leading up to the incident. It didn't take long before they found the clip, the clear image of Yoona pushing you into the pool filling the screens. The room went silent as the guards exchanged knowing looks. "This is bad," one of them muttered under his breath, immediately sending the clip to Jungkook's phone. Back in the room where you lay, Jungkook's phone buzzed, and he quickly glanced at the screen, seeing the notification from his bodyguard. He felt a cold fury building inside him. He watched the clip with growing anger, his jaw tightening as he saw Yoona's actions. He knew he needed to deal with this immediately, but first, he couldn't leave you alone. He called one of his friend Ryan into the room he trusted, his voice strained with tension. "Stay with Yin," he instructed. "Don't leave her side." Ryan nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. "Ryan, I've got her," he assured, stepping closer to you as Jungkook carefully stood up from the bed. With one last look at you, Jungkook steeled himself and exited the room, his expression dark and unreadable. The door clicked softly behind him, and he made his way down the hallway with purpose, the intensity in his eyes, enough to make anyone get out of his way. As he approached the group of his friends and bodyguards, they fell silent, sensing the storm brewing in him. But Jungkook's gaze wasn't on them. It was locked onto Yoona, who was still standing there, trying to act nonchalant, though her fear was palpable. He moved like a lion, each step calculated, closing the distance between them. Yoona tried to act calm, but she couldn't hide her fear. Her heart raced, and she could feel his anger like a heavy weight pressing down on her. When he finally stood just inches away, Jungkook leaned down, bringing his face level with Yoona's. She could feel the heat of his breath, and the fear was written all over her face. A drop of sweat trickled down her forehead as she tried to maintain her composure. "Yoona, what happened?" "Jungkook?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her efforts to stay calm. Without a word, Jungkook's hand lashed out, ping her hard across the face. The sound echoed through the hallway, and Yoona staggered, the sharp pain making her gasp. He didn't stop there. His hand shot up, gripping her NCAC tightly, squeezing with a strength that made her eyes widen in terror. His friends screamed in shock, but none dared to step forward. The fear in the air was palpable, and they knew better than to interfere with Jungkook in this state. Yoona's tears started to fall as she struggled to breathe, her hands clawing at his grip, but it was useless. His expression was cold and merciless, his jaw clenched as he glared down at her. "Jungkook, you think you're smart, don't you?" he growled, his voice low and dangerous. He shoved her roughly against the wall, still choking her, without an ounce of mercy. "Jungkook, you think you can get away with this?" His voice was filled with fury, each word laced with a chilling intensity that made Yoona's heart pound in her chest. "Yoona, Jungkook, please," she gasped out, her voice barely audible as she struggled to speak. "She slapped me first. Please, just let me go." His grip tightened even more, making her wince in pain. He leaned in closer, his lips against her ear, as he whispered in a voice that sent shivers down her spine. "Jungkook, let's have a talk in my basement." He pulled back slightly, signaling to his bodyguards with a simple nod. They moved swiftly, understanding exactly what needed to be done. One of them grabbed Yoona by the arm, while the other restrained her as she began to plead, her voice desperate and filled with terror. "Yoona, no, please, Jungkook, stop, I'm sorry." But Jungkook didn't look back. His expression was cold, his mind focused solely on what needed to be done. As the bodyguards dragged Yoona away, he turned and made his way back to you. The anger still simmered in his veins, but he knew he needs to be with you. His anger began to subside as soon as he saw your peaceful face. The sight of you, safe and calm, helped ease the tension that had been gripping him. Ryan, his closest friend, was sitting beside you, gently rubbing your forehead in an attempt to comfort you. When he saw Jungkook enter, he looked up, concern etched on his face. "Ryan, what's wrong, Jungkook? Did you find out?" he asked quietly. Jungkook's heart ached. The betrayal from Yoona, someone he had once trusted deeply, cut him to the core. It was hard to process that someone he considered so genuine could do something so cruel. His voice was thick with emotion as he tried to hold it together. "Jungkook, nothing for you to worry about, Ryan," he murmured, though the pain in his eyes was clear. Ryan nodded, understanding the weight of the situation. "Ryan, I'm here in the next room if you need anything." We'll all leave in the morning, okay? He said, his tone gentle and supportive. Jungkook moved closer to you, his heart aching as he watched your chest rise and fall with each breath. He scooted closer to the bed, gently wrapping his arms around you and hugging you as tightly as he could without waking you. His head rested on your chest, and he listened intently to your heartbeat, needing the reassurance that you were still with him, still safe. The rhythm of your heartbeat slowly calmed him, helping him push away the anger and fear that had consumed him just moments before. With you in his arms, he could finally begin to relax, holding on to the one thing that mattered most to him in the world. Outside the room, Jungkook's friends gathered in the dimly lit hallway, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. They whispered among themselves, still trying to process what had just happened. I never thought Yuna could do something like this, Minju murmured, shaking his head in disbelief. The others nodded, their expressions grim. She was always so close to Jungkook, another friend added, his voice heavy with concern. How could she turn on him and on Yin like that? It doesn't make any sense. It's terrifying to think someone we trusted could be so cruel, Ryan said quietly, his voice trembling with the weight of the situation. What if Jungkook hadn't found her in time? The group fell into a heavy silence, the reality of the betrayal sinking in. They had always considered Yuna one of their own, someone who was loyal and trustworthy. But now, everything had changed. I guess we never really knew her, one of them finally said, breaking the silence. Not the way we thought we did. The others nodded in agreement, their expressions dark with anger and disappointment. They had no idea how this would all play out. But one thing was certain, things would never be the same again. As the night faded into morning, Jungkook stayed close, refusing to let you go. You slowly began to stir. Jungkook, who had been lightly dozing, immediately sensed your movements. He shifted slightly, resting his weight on you, his arm sliding to the side of your face as he looked at you through sleepy eyes. In a hushed, sleepy voice, he asked, Jungkook, good morning, baby? You're feeling good? You nodded softly, replying, Yin, yes, I am. His expression softened with relief, and without a second thought, he leaned in, pressing a series of gentle kisses on your lips, your cheeks, your forehead, everywhere he could reach. He couldn't seem to get enough, each kiss full of the unspoken worry he had carried throughout the night. Feeling you regain your strength brought a deep sense of calm over him. Jungkook, let me order something for you to eat, okay? You haven't eaten anything since last night, he said softly, brushing a stray hair from your face before reaching for his phone to place the order. Once the order was made, he set the phone aside and turned his full attention back to you. The two of you remained in bed, wrapped in the warmth of each other's presence. Jungkook's hands wandered absent-mindedly, playing with your hair. His hand drifted down to your collarbone, tracing the delicate lines with his fingertips. The touch was light, almost as if he was afraid you might break. He leaned in closer, pressing a soft kiss to your skin, his lips lingering there for a moment longer. A playful glint sparkled in his eyes as his hand traveled down to your tummy. He tickled you lightly, drawing a small laugh from you. Yin, stop, you whispered, but there was no real force behind your words. You couldn't help but smile, the simple joy of the moment lifting your spirits. Jungkook's fingers then found yours, and he intertwined them together, squeezing your hand gently. He brought your hand to his lips, kissing your knuckles one by one. After a while, you looked up at him and asked with a soft smile, Yin, why are you being like this, all romantic? You've never been like this before. Jungkook paused, his hand resting on your cheek as he gazed into your eyes. Jungkook, because I almost lost you, he replied quietly. I don't want to take any moment for granted anymore. I want you to know just how much you mean to me. His voice was sincere, and the look in his eyes made your heart swell with emotion. He leaned in and kissed your forehead, continuing, Jungkook, I've always felt this way, but now, I need to show it more. You deserve to feel loved every single day. After a while, you suddenly looked at him and asked, Yin, do you know who did this to me? He simply nodded, his eyes locking onto yours. Jungkook, she's in her right place now. You don't have to worry about that, he replied, his voice calm but firm, not wanting to burden you with more details. You hesitated for a moment before asking, Yin, were you and Yuna close? Jungkook's expression didn't change as he bluntly responded, Jungkook, we were never close. She was just a friend I considered genuine. His words reassured you, but a lingering doubt still remained. Gathering your thoughts, You asked. Yin, have you ever been in a relationship before? Jungkook shook his head, his tone honest as he replied. Jungkook, no, I haven't. I have a reserved nature. I don't really get comfortable easily. I've never been in one. You let out a small sigh of relief, realizing that Yuna had been lying, but you chose not to bring it up, not wanting to dampen the moment. After a brief pause, you asked Yin, are you a Vijin? A sweet smile tugged at the corner of his lips as he answered. Jungkook, yes, I am. You bit your lip, processing his response. Before you could say anything, Jungkook teased, with a mischievous glint in his eye. Jungkook, why, are you perhaps horny and thinking I can't satisfy? You cringed, lightly pushing him away. Yin, what? No. Get away, you exclaimed, your cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Jungkook's laughter filled the room, a warm, genuine sound that made your heart flutter. It was rare to hear him laugh like that, and it made you feel good. Just as you were enjoying the moment, there was a knock at the door, signaling the arrival of the food. Jungkook, I think it's the food. Let me go get it.